speaking of what you would do if elected, if you were governor today, what would be the first thing you would do to try to kickstart Minnesota's economy?
I think I just said it. I mean, for me, what I would do, I think the next governor is going to have to sit down with our government employees. We're going to have to sit down right away and talk about a plan that involves, one, reducing the excesses, reducing the size of government. You guys know better than I do, but I've been down there for 5 years, and I sit back and always ask myself, why do we have a Department of Health and a Department of Health and Human Services? Why do we have different, we just duplicate services from one agency to another. We have much overlap. It seems to me the first thing is to sit down with them and say, here's the plan. We're going to have to restructure, reorganize. We're going to reduce the size of government, but we don't want to exacerbate an already bad problem with our unemployment situation in the state. So it's got to be two things. One is reduce the size of government. Two is talk about how you stimulate job growth by attracting new business when you reduce the cost of doing business. That's going to take a team approach.
I would put together a jobs package, which we're doing right now, and it's got to be all-encompassing. It's not just about taxes, that's obviously part of it, but we, as I've traveled around the state, we have seen so many examples of job providers that want to expand, that want to grow, that want to start, and I've been specific about it instead of talking in broad prospects about, you know, this is too much regulation in the state. I've actually broken it down to specific legislation that I think that we're going to have to pass to make sure that people all across the state can provide jobs again. We go up to Hoyt Lakes where they want to open up the Polymet mine. A $20+ million environmental impact statement. They know that the sulfur levels are not going to go up. The impact statement has been shown to be proper. We have 400 people ready to go to work and they still can't get the permit. You go down to St. Cloud and it took them over a year to get their clean air permit to spray paint their finished product, their buses. You go down to Lamberton, it took them $250,000 of extra money for consultants, lawyers, fees, permits, licenses, and nonsense. And if they went to South Dakota, it would have been 90% less. We had a guy in Windham, Minnesota, wanted to open up a distillery business. The distillery license fee in the state of Minnesota is $30,000. $30,000 to open up a distillery. And 42 minutes to the south of Windham is the state of Iowa. It costs $350. Where do you think he took his business? And where do you think he took his jobs? He went to Iowa. We now know there are 3 businesses like his in Iowa and 1 in Wisconsin. Those are jobs we should have here. The specimens lab down at Mayo Clinic that they want to open. Good jobs, 80,000+ probably is the average salary. They're looking at Tennessee because the provider tax is levied upon specimens lab and medical technology. In that specific area, we should do an exemption for that because you know what? If that lab goes down to Tennessee, we're not going to collect anything anyway. It's the but-for test. We have example after example after example. It doesn't matter if it's rural or metro, if it's mining, if it's agriculture, if it's manufacturing. We will put an all-encompassing job growth package together. And I think this is an area where we can agree with some of the Democrats that, particularly people like Ann Linchesky and some of those that look at things from a perspective of we've got to be able to grow jobs, and we aren't going to be able to do that just through government growth, but through private sector growth. So that's what my plan would be.
I think there's general agreement on our side that we all think that this is a problem that is rejuvenating the private sector. And it's cutting taxes, cutting regulation, finding ways to attract capital to come back to Minnesota. I am one who believes over the last 20, 30 years we have done so many things to drive away investment from Minnesota, and we have to change that. We have to pass laws that send the message that we are permanently reducing the burdens to do business in Minnesota and bring that back. But fundamentally, I think the biggest difference between what we as Republicans represent and what the other side represents is we don't believe that government is the mechanism to grow the economy. The government certainly has a role to play, but primarily, in my view, it is to create an environment that allows individuals who are the risk takers, are the people that are willing to come here and put their families here and put their lives and their resources at risk to employ others and to come up with products and services that are innovative that creates that exchange that goes on in the private sector. That's how economies are grown. I think too often on the other side you hear about, it's all about jobs, 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 jobs. And what they mean is they want to tax at a higher rate the private sector so they can give that money to us in the legislature, and then we pass some bill to build something that is marginally useful, and then we say, look at the people we've hired. And we can surely point to that. There are people that we hire. But we don't look at the cost. We don't look at what that costs the economy to do that. And that's the thing that I think we as Republicans want to focus on. Get those things out of the way to allow that private sector to thrive, to allow people to come back to Minnesota, grow jobs, invest in the state.
The thing is, the next governor of the state is going to have to hit the ground running the day after the election. There's no time for on-the-job training, anything like that. This governor is going to have to juggle a lot of balls in the air to get done what it's going to take to turn this state around. We're going to grow jobs. We got to get into the tax system. We got to get in regulations. We got to get into spending. We got to look at, just like you do in your business all the time, is you look at the cost effectiveness of your programs. Nobody does it. Nobody looks at that. And we got to start running government as a business. Because once we start doing that, we'll have the opportunity to go out and then work with business people, because we are running the state like a business, and they'll understand it more. Because everybody's confused with how government runs. And we got to turn that around. But we need a governor who's going to go actively out and meet with business owners and get these businesses back, and get the 3Ms and the Honeywells and all our large corporations that are moving jobs out of state. A week ago Friday, we lost 700 jobs in the state. 400 were a medical device company in Brooklyn Park. Very clean industry, and they're leaving our state. And what's that costing us? Revenue, jobs, and it's hurting a lot of people. And we can't afford to have this drain anymore. And I know when I was mayor of Champlin, we had no businesses in our town, and we had to go out and we actively work to recruit businesses and to work with businesses that come in our community. We got to sell the state, just like I had to sell the community. That's what we got to do. But the governor of the state has got a big task to do, and that is going to be the key. Who is going to be the most qualified person, and who's up to the job to go out and get those businesses back and to retain what we have? Because what we've been doing hasn't been working. And so how we did business today, we can't do tomorrow. You know, we have to change, we have to evolve, and that's what my administration is going to do.
I think you're finding we all, the five of us, agree on most issues. We're pretty unanimous in our feelings about this. I think the original question was, what can the governor do today? And what the governor can do today is they can streamline the regulatory process of people already applying for permits, trying to get things, and Marty talked about some of those. That's what the governor can do on her own, on his own, with Governor Plenty today. And then next session, I think there needs to be a huge sales job that's all about jobs and all about the business climate here in the state. And I think that is going to be the job of the next governor also, because until we change how we do things in Minnesota, we are going to continue to have up and down budget cycles, because we have very targeted high rate taxes on certain people and industries who, when they are broke, then the government is completely broke. We do not have a stable revenue stream, and so we're constantly going from feast to famine. And we are losing jobs rapidly, and we're losing businesses because we have such a poor business climate. And I think 30 years ago, you could get away with that because people weren't mobile. People were not leaving the state. Businesses weren't leaving the state. They were generally more manufacturing oriented. They had a lot of investment in equipment and buildings and that sort of thing. And that's not what the economy is anymore. The economy now is generally about service jobs, things that can be performed anywhere. And that's what's happening. And people are leaving, and businesses are leaving. And until we fully comprehend that, and I think there are several Democrats that get this too. So I don't think this is just going to be if the Republicans win both houses of the legislature and the governor, that this will pass. I think there are Democrats that get the job climate problem here. But I think the entire first term of the next governor is going to be focused on mostly economic issues, restructuring state government, restructuring the tax code, and really kickstarting us and setting us up for, we're already into it, but for the 21st century.